Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 15th day of October in the year 2024. Sure hope you're enjoying your Tuesdays no matter where it is you are in the country. And of course, here in the Northeast, it is chilly. If you woke up this morning early, it was in the 40s. Wow, was it chilly today. So no matter where you are, hope you're enjoying the weather, even though it's chilly here in the Northeast. And as you do each and every Tuesday, welcome you into your home so that I can bring you this week's news. And before we get to the week's newspaper, I want to start off discussing a little bit about something that happened last week at the Kearney Town Council meeting. There were a lot of different things that happened during the course of the meeting, but I'm going to start off and break it down to one particular issue that was talked about, and that is that Ed McEwen, who is the acting president of the FMBA Local 18, got up to the microphone and he spoke about what was going on in the town in relation to the fire department. He started off talking about the Juan Barroso situation, which we'll get to later, but then he also discussed about how morale among the firefighters is in the tanks. So rather than explain it to you, I have cut the video from the meeting last Tuesday, 1 week ago today, and I will show it to you, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. So without any further ado, here is Ed McEwen speaking to the Kearney Town Council last week about the morale of the fire department that is in part caused by what's going on with Juan Barroso. Take a look.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to ask the members of Local 18 FMBA that are here, if you guys can stand up for a minute. Because I'm coming here tonight not to speak as an individual, rather speak on behalf of a union as a whole. We want to discuss the general tone and morale of the Kearney firefighters, unfortunately due to a pattern of events and treatment over the years. It's hard not to start with the most obvious situation. That's the current suspension of Juan Barroso. Not only is Juan a dear friend to us all, a great coworker, Juan was also a union leader, regardless of what position he ever held. He always had the best interest for the department and community. Juan was simply a flame of positivity. Unfortunately, that flame was extinguished. I'm not going to go into great detail about the charges and proposed punishments. We know well too much about that. We unfortunately have to address a public criticism. We saw on Facebook some interactions a while ago when this first happened. Mayor Doyle, you commented a lot with the community, and there was one comment that's been shared with me many times, was about the silence of the members of the fire department FMBA. And we want to make it very clear that that silence did not equate to not having support for Juan. That silence was us taking legal advice and public relations advice from professionals. And we were hoping that this matter would be settled and resolved before going to a hearing. We know by going public with things like that, situations and parties often tend to dig in and not work to get resolved, and it's harder to come to a compromise. What bothers us most, though, as a membership, isn't necessarily that this is happening to Juan Barroso, a firefighter with a laundry list of good deeds, which we all know about. This is an 18-year employee with no disciplinary record, and our first course of action was to skip progressive discipline and immediately jump to termination. What message does that relay to other employees in this town? How many people are walking on eggshells now? Because I can tell you, in the fire department, we are. This simply has created an unhealthy environment to work in. We've said from day one, I've said it to the chief, Mr. Marks, who isn't here, the proposed disciplinary action without this progressive discipline doesn't sit well with any of us, and we can't stand for it. As we're getting closer to a hearing date, There's been comments made about a hearing officer mediation. I want to make it very clear from the union stance that this hearing officer is not an unbiased hearing officer. That hearing officer is hired by the town. This hearing officer has a reputation to rule almost always in favor of the employer. I know Mr. Bruno has said at many meetings that the matter's a civil service matter, not to make a comment. Not making a comment is probably good advice. But I want to make it very clear, this is actually not a civil service matter yet. We haven't even had a town hearing. We're still in the stage of a preliminary notice of disciplinary action. So there's still time to adjust that preliminary notice of disciplinary action and look for a reasonable disciplinary punishment that fits the crime. Or I'm not going to say it's a crime, that fits the, not only has this issue affected morale so greatly, typically in fire departments, you have to understand morale isn't won or lost over one issue. It's a pattern of events over time. If you have a pattern of many positive actions, morale tends to rise. If you have a pattern of negative actions, morale drops. Sometimes one negative action can wipe out so many positive actions. And once we lose that morale, it becomes so much more difficult to regain. And while we've had recently a number of small positive steps working with the town, it so quickly gets lost and forgotten. We can't blame the members for thinking that way and forgetting about that. Let me explain a little bit more about what we mean when we talk about that. When we as firefighters do our job, and we do a job well, it's to the benefit of the community, and our fire department seems to do a great job of this. I think we can all pretty much agree on that, especially with the comments made by the council tonight. The community sees these actions, they thank us. The governing body sees these actions, they thank us. But words can only go so far. Years of bad contracts, and that dates well before any of the members that are standing here and myself. Not keeping pace with the relative departments within here in Kearney and our adjacent communities. We've had a severe financial effect on our employees and our families over time. We've had at least one member that I know of that we hired that he ended up on food stamps. This should be embarrassing. I've seen similar trends in other departments within this town of not being able to retain employees. Retention and retaining employees is so paramount. Salary is important, but it isn't the only factor that comes into play when we talk about morale of the fire department. The firehouse living conditions. I'm glad it was kind of brought up a few times tonight. We as firefighters spend about a quarter of our year living in these buildings. We're the only employees that live in town buildings. You may or may not know, but I watch all the council meetings. A number of us do. We've watched over the last number of months Council President Eckel bringing up bonded money that seemed to, the thought was it was going to be used, some of it used for improving firehouse living conditions, as well as other things around town. Mayor Doyle mentioned not seeing requests from department heads or something like that at a recent meeting. However, I know that wasn't completely accurate. I don't want to mention the chief might not like it or not, but I saw a document from the chief to the business administrator. It outlined $3.5 million in requests for capital improvements. If that's not seeing something from a department head, I don't know what is. It included 2 apparatus, and I can't emphasize enough how important these requests are for the health and well-being of our firefighters. The requests our chief made for building improvements are honestly the minimum needed to get moving in the right direction. We have bathrooms from God only knows what decade falling apart, showers not working, which is needed for proper decontamination after fires, toilets that are lined up next to each other with no walls or separators for God only knows what purpose when originally constructed, constant infestations. We have mice issues in firehouses. At one station, firefighters actually keep their boots on chairs down by the fire apparatus because they don't want cockroaches to climb into them. No proper airflow throughout many of the buildings. And aside from some new windows that were put in, which when we put up the Christmas decorations this year, those that got eyes on it, we can have another conversation about this the shoddy workmanship that was done there, a lot of gaps and with the building, and you can feel the airflow through. We don't blame the fire chief or the council for that, but the contractors should be held accountable. Town keeps putting in residential grade equipment in our kitchens, which needs to be replaced so fast that I seem to believe it's definitely wasting taxpayer money over a measurable amount of time. In fact, our members got so tired of waiting for the town to upgrade some of the rooms that they went out, bought new flooring for 2 rooms, installed the flooring on their own, painted and did other minor upgrades, all on our dime with no expectation for reimbursement from the town. It's because our members do care about the buildings they live in, and we do our best to make it as good as possible for ourselves. A few years ago, they also replaced cabinets and countertops in that same station that I'm referring to. That's Station 2 up on Kearney Ave. Our members put a lot of time, effort, personal money into maintaining our own buildings. We really need the town to step up and meet us instead of just the thanking us and talking and the talk for all the good works that we do. Please take the extra effort to show us as a whole governing body that you're here for us. It's not just up to the fire committee, it's up to the entire mayor and council. You guys are responsible for public safety. Any of us would be happy to take anyone around to show you exactly what we're talking about. We know Councilwoman Eckel has come through quickly a few times to look at some of the things, and we would like more of you to come down and have a dialogue with our firefighters. Sit down, have a cup of coffee in the station. We're happy to have you. We want to show you the things that we need to make our jobs better to help the community. I was so very happy to see in that request a new request for a new ladder truck, which we so desperately need, a second one. Our old second ladder is always breaking down, and I could only imagine the amount of dollars spent in repairs probably would be half the cost of a new one. Not only to mention it's difficult at times to navigate around time with our overflow parking situation, especially in the southern part of town, that we can't get down certain streets. We can't actually turn on the streets at certain points of the day with the large tower ladders.
Thank you,
We need
Mr.
an
McCune. Your
appropriate step
time is up.
for that. Okay. I don't have
Okay,
much more.
I don't know about the mayor.
Excuse me. You want to have a comment?
I'll make it quick.
Make it quick.
Okay. We'll skip to it. Okay. Lastly, I'd like to mention Station 4 in South Kearney. First, I'd like to thank Chief McPhee. Without his help in reassigning an unused police room in the fire department, we would still have 3 firefighters crammed in essentially a chicken coop. Because of his direct help, our firefighters down there can breathe slightly better today. I'm so happy and lucky to see a positive working relationship with our police and fire chief. With that being said, some of the older council members will probably know 12 years. 12 years. 12 years our firefighters have been in temporary trailers in South Kearney. Temporary trailers. They live inside trailers, inside a garage, connected to an abandoned building that's slowly sinking into the ground. Just think about that. I'm going to skip because I said I'd make it quick. These are just some of the issues that weigh on our members day in and day out. We could really go on for a long time, and I look forward to the future conversations. I thank you for this time tonight, as we as a union want to work together to find real solutions to all these real problems. And to the residents and visitors of Kearney, always know, regardless of what issues we may be facing, we first and foremost are here for you. When those bells go off, those wheels on those trucks roll out the door, we're there for the community and the residents, number one. Always remember, an investment in public safety is an investment in the community. Thank you, and God bless you all.
So there it was. That was Ed McCune, who is the interim president of the FMBA, because Juan Barroso is suspended. He has stepped aside as the president of the FMBA, and Ed McCune spoke at the meeting last week, and there's a couple of things that I want to address about that as I put this up on the screen. As a reminder to the council and the mayor that Juan Barroso, who has been the longtime chief fire inspector, has been suspended for 7+ months now. Do the simple math, it's over 210 days. And Juan, who is the father of 4 boys, one who was just born a couple of weeks ago, has not had a paycheck since then. Keep that in mind. But the discussion about morale that Ed McEwen brought to the table, and I would give him a standing ovation if I had the opportunity to do it right now in the proper setting, because I think his speech was magnificent. The way he spoke, what he addressed, was not just bothersome, but remarkable that in 2024 this is happening. But I want to address the first thing that he discussed, and that was about the morale of the fire department. Now, I don't have any inner knowledge or inner workings of the Kearney Fire Department at all, so I will not speak about this as an expert of any kind. But what I will do is speak about the issue of morale. And in my lifetime, there have been a couple of occasions where places that I worked, not here at the Observer, but in other places where I've worked, where morale was pitiful. And I will say this. Those instances where, in my experience, morale was low, always had a common thread. Always had a common thread. And you know what that common thread was? The very top of the organizational structure. And that means that in certain instances, it could have been a school principal, it could have been a company CEO, it could have been ownership. And again, I want this to be clear. I'm not speaking of now. I'm talking about previous positions that I've held in my career where morale was low, that it was always a matter of a breakdown from above, as Tony Azzardo would always say. Tony Azzardo, my Jesuit friend who left us last year. The morale would be low when the leaders of the company or the organization or the school, the leadership was ineffective and weak. And if you have a department where you've got the crown jewel of the department basically in Juan, and then the interim president of the union getting up to the microphone and saying morale in our department stinks, what other conclusion could there be that other than indecisions that are being made by the governing body, that the morale problem starts from the very, very top? Because when you have a guy like Juan Barroso, who is suspended for 7 months for essentially doing nothing, and we saw the paperwork and we saw the charges and we know what he stands accused of doing. We know what he is accused of doing. And as Ed said in his speech, the crime, or what we'll say the incident, doesn't reflect the proposed punishment. And that includes this 7+ month suspension where he hasn't received a dime of money from the town for the work that he should be performing still to this day. You cannot help but wonder why this is happening and why the morale is so bad. And it's because I would bet, nobody will admit it, but Ed said it himself, that everybody's kind of walking around on eggshells. Who will be the next victim of a vendetta? Who will be the next person who is targeted by the departmental leadership? Who will be the next one to go suspended for 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years, however long it will be? Who will be the next person who has to file for food stamps. Did you hear him say that? A member of the fire department who has a salary had to file for food stamps. So what happens if you do something that is supposed to be charitable and is looked upon as if you were a hardcore criminal? So that's the only conclusion you can come to, really, logically speaking, is that the morale is the way it is because the person at the top is ineffective and is not respected. And this is a person who we know, you and I know, at least in the case of the man whose picture is on the screen right now, could have made this guy go away. He could have said, I made a mistake, I overreacted to this, and he could have withdrawn the charges. He still hasn't, he still could, and he still hasn't. He's continuing this. And I assure you, this is not all he's doing. There will be more to this story in the coming months that will blow your mind away. So maybe what really needs to be addressed here is the fire department's leadership effective? Is the morale of the department the way it is because of leadership in the higher up, in the higher ranks? My thought is it is. But it's not for me to decide. That's for you to decide. But just tell me this. Anywhere you've worked over the years, if you had a boss or you had a CEO or president, whatever the title is, it doesn't matter, who is effective, good at what he or she does, made employees feel welcome, made them feel worth their value, would morale be high or would morale be low in a situation like that? And you know the answer is morale would be extremely high. But for some reason it's not in this department. There has to be a culprit, and there's only one logical conclusion that can be made in this case, and that it starts from the very, very top. And perhaps that's where the mistake is being made here, that nobody's recognizing that. But it's time somebody does. It is 52 minutes past the hour. Kevin Knessa here with you this afternoon. And I thank you for indulging the video today. I hope you all had a chance to view it. If you did not yet get to see the video, please go back and watch it. At the earlier part here, Ed McCune, the acting president of the FMBA, or interim, I'm not sure what the exact title is, speaks to the town council about the conditions in the Kearney Fire Department. So we'll move on to this week's newspaper. The two front page stories are two of my favorite of the year. The town of Kearney celebrated Latino Heritage a couple of weeks ago, and I had a chance to sit down with Councilman George Zapata, who spearheaded this program, and from all indications, it was a massively successful program where members of the Latino and Hispanic communities got together. There was a service fair along with it. Again, I remind you, this isn't the first time there was a service fair in Kearney. In fact, one is coming up again. But this was the first time it was designed specifically for the Hispanic Latino members of the Kearney community. George Zapata pulled it together very nicely. And there was a lot of food, all of which was donated for free. Nobody had to pay for any of this. There were tables from Clara Moss Hospital, from a company that trains for OSHA standards. One of them, companies that was there, gave lessons on QuickBooks, and it was a great day of Latino culture, food, music, and resources. And you know, when I was speaking to George, he was telling me that in the Latino community, a lot of times, especially for the men, asking for help is a challenge. And there's a stigma attached to when you need something, having to ask somebody to help you with it, which I understand. I do, and I'm sure it goes way beyond just the Latino community. But at this event, people were not hesitant to ask for the help that they need, whether it was for the anchor rebates or, needing to get lead on jobs, whatever it was. And I have to tip the hat to George for pulling this together. It was not an easy task, but he did it, and he did it well, and the rest of the council supporting him did that as well. And he lists a lot of people who deserve our thanks and praise for their involvement in the program. So I hope you'll check that out on page number 1 as well. And the other front page story happened last week also, and that was this beautiful sign that you see here. There are others like it in Kearney, but John O'Connor, who is on the KMUA, saw the one at this location when you're coming off the Rutgers Street Bridge from Belleville into Kearney and said, that thing is kind of dingy. Let's do something about this. So he came up with the idea of contacting the Cali family, and they contacted the Cali family. They donated the sign, which is just gorgeous, and it stands there now. And the people that you see in the picture here are members of the Cali family, including John III and Yvonne Cali. And there was a beautiful dedication last week. And when you drive into Kearney now, you'll see it all the time. And always remember that it was because of the Cali. And a lot of it was done in memory of John Jr., who left us a few years ago at an all too young age. And, you know, when you think about what the Cali family does for Kearney, and not just Kearney, but for all of West Hudson, it's just remarkable. It's just remarkable. And I really want to give a good shout out to, and I hate that word, I'm sorry, praise to John O'Connor for the work that he put into getting this done. It was not easy, and it's finally completed, but this was a great idea. It makes the entranceway to Kearney look significantly better, and we cannot stop without thanking the Cali family for their donation of the beautiful sign as well. On behalf of the town of Kearney. They have done so much for this town over the years, and they continue to do that all these years later. So that was the other front page story that I hope you'll take a look at this week. And there's other things inside the paper. And don't forget, there's 2 pages of classifieds, as there are each and every week, and a whole bunch of other things to catch you up on. So please pick up a copy of tomorrow's paper and give it a read when you have your opportunity. One last thing I wanted to just bring up, and this is a little bit selfish. Yesterday I was inducted into the Order of the Elks in Kearney, and I'm honored to be part of that organization, and I want to thank Melanie Pasquarelli and Bill Dow and Billy Dow, who you see here, and all of the Elks for welcoming me into their membership, and to all of the Elks. I know so many Elks in this town, and I'm excited to be part of the membership, but I really want to thank Melanie and Bill for the kind of work that they do, whether it's with the Great Duck Race or with hundreds of other things. It is such a charitable and wonderful organization, and it is an honor for me to consider myself a member, and I was grateful to take the induction there with, look at this guy right next to us, Lenny Twist. What more could one ask for than to be inducted with Lenny Twist? That's going to do it for this edition of the Observer Live. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. Don't forget, we'll be back 1 week from today, or if anything breaks in between now and then, we will join you live with that. But until then, from the newsroom of the Observer and theobserver.com, it's Kevin Canessa signing off for now. And we hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody, and we'll see you later. Bye, Melanie. Bye, Carol. Bye, Lori and Bernadette Antonelli. And I don't think I missed anybody else, but if I did, I'm sorry. Oh, and Mayor Dan Pronti's supposed to be watching, too. So, Mayor Pronti, good to see you as well. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Bernadette. Please give our love to Tommy, too, and to you. Bye.